Hello and thanks again for joining me this week. I want to start by noting the passing of Luther Reynolds. Friends in our government knew him as a Deputy Chief of Montgomery County's Police Department. He left our area 5 years ago to become the Chief of Police in Charleston, South Carolina, and he served their community as he did ours with honor and commitment. When I was on the County Council, we leaned on his expertise and advice to help us develop departmental policies for body-worn cameras. Former co-workers talk about the way he loved the communities he served. He died Monday from cancer. He was 56 years old, and my condolences go out to his wife and 2 children. Moving on to the subject that's been our focus for the last 2 months, I want to answer a question I've gotten more than once since the end of last week. How do you feel about the County Council's decision to cut your proposed property tax increase in half? I want to be clear that nothing's changed within MCPS from last week to this week. Schools still need the money that would have been collected had the 10-cent property tax been improved. The money will be spent on schools this year versus last year's an increase of 8.5%, which is a good thing. But by not pushing for that extra 1.5% and by not going higher on how much we'll use from a property tax increase to fund all of it are mistakes. On the one hand, it funded salaries. On the other hand, it didn't fund staffing needs and didn't allow for increases in inflation that everybody here knows is a problem that we're all too familiar with. Whether it's food for school lunches, repair or replacement of equipment, or rising fuel costs for vehicles and building heating and cooling, these increases are real and should have been in the base budget. The budget approved this week by the Council ignores record levels of reserves that could have been better used. It continues to expect taxpayers to foot the entire bill for retiree benefits, leaving millions of dollars in a reserve fund that was specifically intended to pay for those costs untouched. Just let me say this about the reserve fund. It is $750 million. It was set up to pay all or part of the costs of retiree health benefits. And to this date, we have not used a penny, which means county money is going into both the reserve fund while it's simultaneously paying the entirety of the employee benefits, and none of the money in the reserves is being used to lighten the pressure on our taxes. Pushing forward this way puts MCPS in jeopardy of not being able to fill more than 200 positions that my proposal would have funded. It expects the school district to use one-time money, the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, otherwise known as ESSER funds, to pay for teachers that will expect a paycheck after next year, as well as which we will need new funding to address that. So this is the situation they've left us in. If the school system funds the positions with one-time money, and this is a lot of money, the following year, when there is no federal money, those go back on school payroll and have to be funded by taxes. This tax increase would have provided that money. Without that, we're going to be having a very similar discussion next year. Recently, I saw a chart comparing Washington area boards of education and the amount of spending that they put in per pupil. The school districts in Northern Virginia are all putting more money into investing in their children than we are. We're a big county, but we're not acting that way when it comes to investing in our schools. It remains our best asset and the biggest part of our county's reputation, which is a large part of why people want to come and raise their families here. For us to allow it to slip to the point where we're now spending 80% of what we were spending in 2010 is a mistake, and the council just compounded that mistake. After analyzing the budget and identifying other revenue sources like MCPS reserves, it was clear we could have used the tools at our disposal to get the property tax increase down to about 6% and still kept everything in the budget. But that's not what the council wanted to do. They were obsessed with cutting the tax rate, and that will impact all of our lives next year and beyond. Property tax rates in this county are not the highest. Most of the counties that surround us, Frederick, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Carroll, Cecil, Charles, Dorchester, Frederick, Garrett, Hartford, Howard, Kent, Prince George's, and Somerset, that's 14 counties, all have a higher property tax rate than we do. And in Virginia, Alexandria and Fairfax both have higher tax rates than we do. By taking a sledgehammer to my proposal, we're taking away money dedicated to street repairs, lighting improvements, positions to help businesses adopt greener policies. They've cut economic development positions to help our government work with small businesses, and I foresee the need to revisit some of these cuts over the next year because they've cut into essential fuel and utility costs. Eventually, the money will be spent because we're not going to live in the dark or keep our trucks grounded when we need improvements to be made. Instead of the money coming out of the budget, it will be coming out of reserves. But that was not the way it had to be. So in short, I'm thankful that more money will be going towards schools, and that's a win. But there were cuts outside the school system that were there to address systemic staffing issues or to provide support to county-funded programs, all of them created with and funded by the council in the past. This budget reduces funding for small business support, support for climate change assistance for homeowners and businesses, and reduces staffing needed to improve and speed up hiring. We do have a vacancy problem. And it reduces funding intended to reduce homelessness. And even funding for sidewalk repairs and lighting in urban areas was cut. As I said earlier, this all could have been funded inside a 6-cent tax rate with other smarter decisions in how we spend tax dollars that we're already collecting. All of that without cutting programs and staff. I'm glad that 98% of my budget is pretty much intact, but I'm disappointed in how we got there. Our communities deserve the best schools we can give them. Doing this half measure kicks the can down the road and sets us up for more challenges ahead. I'm excited to share with you that on Wednesday I signed a late night business safety plan bill that was passed by the County Council on Tuesday, May 16, 2023. I want to thank the County Council for considering the idea that I introduced in February, and following amendments made by the Council, it will apply to countywide businesses that provide on-site consumption of tobacco, food, alcohol, or cannabis, and either operate between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. or operate between midnight and 2 a.m. and have been the subject of 2 or more service calls for law enforcement to respond to serious incidents during the prior 12 months. The serious incidents would include crimes identified in executive regulations being developed by the executive branch now. Each business will be required to develop an emergency evacuation plan and provide 24-hour contact information of the business owner or manager, an acknowledgement that the businesses have received late-night business training from the county, and acknowledgement that the business follows the law, and a statement regarding any unresolved or pending citations issued by a government entity within the prior 3 years are expected as well. These recommendations will be developed in collaboration with multiple county departments, consistent with executive regulations. Grant funding will be available for businesses to use in order to secure facility enhancements. Perception is reality, and perception is what we need to deal with even more. My goal was in this law to hold businesses accountable for the disproportionate number of calls that force police to come and handle late night situations in these establishments. This isn't about punishing those businesses, but it's about making our communities safer. We want people to enjoy nightlife in Montgomery County. We want late night businesses to thrive. We need a better balance between the vibrancy of our nightlife and safety. This is the kind of change that will help accomplish all of these things. The past week has been heartbreaking and disconcerting for all of us who care about keeping our streets safe for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. We've seen many crashes all over the county result in serious injury and death, and these incidents are not caused by any factor that the government could have changed. It has a lot to do with alcohol and speed. The Montgomery County Police Department just launched its 100 Deadliest Days initiative aimed at teen drivers. Teens with cars will be on the road more now that school is ending soon. But the lessons from the education program are universal. Slow down, stay off your cell phone, avoid drugs and alcohol before getting behind the wheel. All three are related when you consider speed is the #1 reason for crashes overall. Our Vision Zero program understands the importance of slowing drivers down. Over the last few years, the speed limit has been lowered on dozens of neighborhood streets across the county. Sometimes even open roads connecting home to work like Montrose Road and Sam I need lower speed limits as well. The State Highway Administration also recently lowered speeds on roads throughout the county like Veers Mill Road, Georgia Avenue, Great Seneca Highway, and New Hampshire Avenue. The idea is to slow drivers down and to give them more time to react to hazards and other drivers on the road. We're trying to prevent losing friends and family on the roads. We want to eliminate serious and fatal conditions on the county streets by the year 2030. I encourage you to learn more about our plan by visiting montgomerycountymd.gov/vision0. Finally, I want to commend two of our county departments for recent efforts to involve young people in our government. The Paint the Plow contest is held by Montgomery County's Department of Transportation and is done in conjunction with the Public Works Week and Truck Day. The idea is to put creative artists to work on redesigning the look of our snowplows. Redland Middle School in Durwood was selected as the first place winner. You can have a look at the top 3 vote getters by visiting montgomerycountymd.gov/DOT and look in the news section for the winners. Over in Alcohol Beverage Services, you wouldn't think that asking kids to help would be a good thing, but in this case, groups of teens were invited to work on and submit public service awareness videos on the dangers of drinking. Those Keeping It Safe shorts were judged and 8 prizes were awarded. You can view those winning videos online through the ABS website. Winning teams receive cash, and from these submissions, word is spread in a peer-to-peer way about the dangers of underage drinking that may be more effective than a lesson from adults. Congratulations to the 2 first-place winners from Gaithersburg High School and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. And again, thank you all to everyone who participated in these contests. It's a great way to get involved, learn more about your community and the role of government. As we head towards the end of May, I'd like to remind all kids and kids at heart that public pools will be open Saturday, May 27th. Stay safe this Memorial Day weekend. That's our wrap up for today, and we'll be back again next week.